Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Hey there, super starters. Welcome to the Start Something Show. This is Tina Dietz. Today on our show, we have the just delightful Teresa DeGrosbois, who's going to be talking with us about how to become an influential person and get your message to spread like wildfire. Teresa and I have known each other for quite a long time. Actually, we both belong to a global organization called the Evolutionary Business Council that is for invitation-only speakers and influencers around the world who are dedicated to teaching the principles of success. And I mention that because if you're someone who is going to dedicate your business and your life to spreading a greater message, changing the world, and you want to become a more influential person, I'm just going to suggest that you look that up at ebcouncil.com. It is invitation only. However, this is something you really should know about because, well, let's consider yourselves an insider now that you have me on your team. Okay, so now we're going to be talking with Teresa later in the show, of course, but let's start with one of my favorite segments, Don't Be That Guy. All right, our Don't Be That Guy for this month is Smarmy Autoresponder Guy. Okay, so you may have joined a list or maybe that you started following somebody on social media. And the first thing that they send back to you once you friended them on Facebook and they've accepted your request, or you're following them on Twitter, is you immediately get this autoresponder that is, hey, how are you? Thanks for following me. Buy all my stuff. Don't be that guy. Okay. Relationships, as we're going to be talking about in more depth with Teresa later in the show, are an act of compassion. They're an act of kindness. And you have to develop relationships over time, not just smack people in the face with your products. If you want to build influence with an autoresponder, I'm not saying don't send one. I'm saying don't be smarmy about it. Act like an actual human being rather than a walking billboard. Give people an opportunity to start a conversation with you. The ones that do, well, maybe then you'll have an opportunity to deepen that relationship, and you never know where that's going to lead. So if you're going to have an autoresponder, especially on social media, instead of putting forward your own stuff or, hey, follow me over here as well, because they probably already know that, ask them a question about themselves. Have them send you their favorite quote and then tweet it out on their behalf. Ask them what they're up to this year. One of my favorite questions is, by the end of this year, what would you like to be celebrating? Engage people in conversations. Let them know who you are and that you're not just a fly-by-night, I'm out to sell anything at any time, at any cost kind of person. Because nobody wants to be in a party with that smarmy, billboardy, salesy kind of human being, okay? And really, are you that way in real life? No. Be who you are. Engage people in conversation. And don't be that guy. Don't be smarmy autoresponder guy. If you've got a don't be that guy moment or you have a don't be that guy sighting, go to the website at thestartsomethingshow.com, go to the Contact Us page and report it. Or tweet it out with hashtag don't be that guy. Today on the Start Something Show, I am very happy to welcome Teresa DeGrosbois. She is an international speaker sought by entrepreneurs and large corporations wanting to better understand how local word of mouth can suddenly turn epidemic, because that's what we all want. She specializes in the topics of influence and success, and Teresa has a proven track record in understanding word-of-mouth epidemics because she's taken 3 books to bestseller status in only 8 months. Teresa teaches business and marketing courses around the globe, including teaching courses to startup entrepreneurs in developing countries. And as the chair of the Evolutionary Business Council, which is something I personally just absolutely adore, Teresa leads an international invitation-only council of speakers and influencers dedicated to teaching the principles of success. For more information, her website is www.wildfirews.com. Teresa. Thanks for starting something with me today.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Tina. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on my show. This is great.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and dive right in. Take us back to when you were getting started. When did you know you wanted to change your life and start something?
Well, a lot of people are like just born hardwired, knowing what they want to do. That wasn't me.
There's a lot of our audience that's going to be relieved about that.
I had a long career working in the oil and gas industry, actually, as a leader. I was one of those rare individuals that, I liked what I was doing, but I didn't love what I was doing, And, I love the adage they say, the hardest thing to do is to leave a good job to live your dreams. And I remember somebody saying that to me one time, and I thought, oh, that's so me. I'm not living my dreams. I'm not really out there contributing in the way I want to do and doing the things I want to do. And I actually posted that up on my wall for a little while. And, and then I had what I affectionately call my really bad year, and I can laugh about it now. And I'm sure there's people listening that can relate to this because, I now know it was the best freaking thing that ever happened to me. And in the first 6 months of that year, I had lost my health, my business had failed, my company had failed, and my father had passed away.
Oh, my goodness.
And I remember actually, I'm sitting one day in the bathroom of my post-marriage breakup condo.
Oh, that too. Okay. Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by tools because I've always been a renovator, and this bathroom is going to be my latest project. And I'm literally soaked in my own tears because all I can think is how incredibly unhappy I was. And I'm looking back over the past 10 years of my life, and I can't actually remember the last time I can look at and say I was really lit up and on fire about my life. And as I'm sitting there looking at the tools, I make the decision, it's me that needs renovating. And it was just one of those profound moments that changed my life because I started taking every self-help course known to man. Actually, I went back to school. I did a whole certificate in mediation because I'd always been a conflict avoider, and we know what that's like to live with a conflict avoider.
Of course. And many of us are.
Yeah, no kidding. I got a lot more serious about my yoga and my health. And, the interesting thing was I did what a lot of transformational leaders talk about. I leaned in. You don't always know what it is that you want to be doing in life. So I leaned in and guessed what I thought it might be. So within a couple of years of that time, I had, quit my job, set up a not-for-profit charity to build schools in Africa. I started taking my hobby of writing children's stories because I'd always written little poems and stories for my kids. So I published 3 of them into children's books to raise money for my charity, quickly put all 3 books on the bestseller list. And then 2 really cool things happened. The first was that I quickly discovered I didn't really like running a charity and I didn't like being a children's author, And not that I didn't enjoy them at some level, but they weren't lighting me up any more than my past career had,
Right. Yeah. Well, especially being a children's author, you spend a lot of time going into schools, and it's very time consuming. And
and I enjoy writing kids' books, but going into schools wasn't really lighting me up the way I thought it might, And the second thing that happened was I had people coming at me in droves going, holy cow, Teresa, 3 bestsellers in 8 months. How the heck did you do that? And I started coaching all these people on how do they become more influential. And it's kind of like how fish don't know what water is. Often we don't know what our biggest gifts are until somebody else points it out, And I remember I'm sitting having tea with my best friend, Sean DeParron, one day. I know you know Sean.
I know. Yeah, I adore Sean. She's great.
Also an international level speaker. And Sean looks at me as only Sean can. And she says, honey, if God's sending you a flood of stuff that you love, don't you think you should pay attention to that? And I realized in that moment that what was really lighting me up was actually helping people step into thought leadership and really move forward and becoming influential. And it was what I was naturally good at. It was, in fact, what I had been working for the last 20 years of my career doing in the oil and gas industry. I just wasn't doing it for something that was deeply meaningful to me. And so I rebranded myself overnight. I became someone who teaches others how to, generate word of mouth, generate epidemics around their work, generate influence. And my life has been so on fire ever since. It's like when you hit it, you've hit it. And I've never looked back. It's been really awesome since that point.
That's beautiful. I love that. You know, of course, we all deal with setbacks, and you just talked about your, what did you say, your affectionately termed a very bad year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And something we want to make sure people listening to the show know is that failure is not a dirty word. We really have to normalize it because it shapes us. These, you know, like you were sharing your story, and I keep hearing this from most of all of the folks that come on the show, is that there's this turning point where folks take a challenge and it shifts everything for them for the better, points them in the direction they really need to go in to live their purpose and their passion. So you talked about some setbacks and failures you had, you know, in the initial portions of it. In your business since that time, what would you say that you've had to deal with, and how did you bounce back from it?
You know, I love this topic because, you know, I really do believe in what a lot of business experts talk about in terms of failing faster.
Yes.
You know, and like, cause really there's no road to entrepreneurship. There's no road to anything that you're not going to fail in. And so, you know, that's one of the things I keep up on my wall. Fail fast, forgive yourself quickly. And
I like that. I like the second tag you put onto that because that's so key.
And, you know, the forgiveness part really hit home for me because, you know, I've done a lot of work with Shonda Perrin around the Project Forgive. And which is, you know, becoming a major documentary. And not only that, it's really turning into a movement, right? Because how often do we talk about the term forgiveness in business? And the reality is forgiveness is the number one thing that's needed to be a successful entrepreneur. I fail daily. You know, I screw up on a conversation that I didn't go the way I wanted. You know, I put a video out that, didn't land right. You know, you send out copy, an email to your list and nobody responds. And you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I threw a party and nobody came, right? And if I spend my time wallowing in that, you know, 2-3 hours goes by and I've done nothing. Whereas if I just say, oops, you know what, you gave it a good shot. I forgive myself, move forward. You know, you move into what's next so much more rapidly. The reality is, you know, a lot of what I talk about, a lot of what I teach is how do you move from the one-on-one game into the one-to-many game? You know, because there's a lot of people out there, they trade their hours for dollars. And Robert Kiyosaki talks about this a lot in his book, you know, where you don't become a true business owner until you have portions of your business where you can walk away from them. They don't require on your time to make money.
Exactly. And you're referring to Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
right? The whole Rich Dad, Poor Dad book,
the whole
right?
Series there. Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot about understanding how to become influential is you've got to be able to move into a one-to-many scenario, and that takes courage. And the reality is courage is never tidy. Courage is sloppy. Courage is messy. Courage requires you to fail and fail fast and get past it because there's no success without courage, and there's no success without getting sloppy. I always talk to my students about, you know, give yourself permission to succeed sloppily because otherwise you're not ever going to get anywhere. Exactly.
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings of the last year was, done is the new perfect.
I love it. Yeah. Done is the new perfect. That's so brilliant. I'm really facing that a lot with my book, you know, because the journey of getting a book out is so intimate and so vulnerable, you know. And one of the reasons I wanted to write this book was I'm realizing, you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the rules of the influence game because it's just like, it's almost like it's a sport. And, you know, we learned one set of rules in networking that serve us well when we're, you know, at the networking functions and doing the one-on-one networking. And then you start networking with influencers and they've got a whole different rule book. Like, you know, we all know it's a good idea to buy coffee for someone you might met at a networking function, but if you offered to buy Oprah Winfrey coffee, you know, her gatekeepers would get in the way so fast you might have a restraining order slapped on you.
Very, very true. Yeah. Very, very true. So what are you outlining in this book? Because I know you've written, you know, obviously several bestsellers, and this next book that you have coming out in the fall is something I'm very excited about because I don't think it's a topic that really gets enough attention.
Yeah. You know, it's really the habits of the highly influential and the mistakes people tend to make when they first start connecting with influencers and becoming influential themselves. And trust me, every mistake in this book I've made. And so a lot of this I've learned the hard way, but I've also learned it from, you know, not only watching and studying influential people, but actually, you know, talking to them and saying what really works. What do you expect when people first connect with you? So it's a really cool, it's almost like a recipe book for, what are the habits you need to develop if you want to really move into that one-to-many scenario.
Well, as you've become an influential person, what are some of the risks that you've taken on that journey?
Oh, what a great question. Some of the risks. The biggest risk required to become influential is to really put yourself out there. And I think for me, some of the biggest risks have been like pushing myself onto stages that were freaking scary because they were so much bigger than anything I'd ever attempted before. Like going to India last year. And, the interesting thing about India is there's just so many freaking people there. Yeah. You walk onto any stage in India and it'll be huge, So,
yes, I've heard that from other speakers in India as well. It's the vastness of the numbers of people.
So it's not uncommon to have stages of anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 in India. So you go over there and speak and you suddenly walk out and there's thousands of people in the audience. I got to tell you, not that I don't speak on big stages often, there's often 400 or 500 people in the room. But 10,000 is a different game,
Yes.
And I really had some mind conversation coming up. I really had to stand on stage and calm myself down to really get, present with these are just people too. There's just more of them than I'm used to, And the reality is when you can look out at your audience and see the individuals, when you can see the guy sitting in the third row who's got kids and just wants to leave a better world behind, when you can see the woman, 40 rows back who's got arthritis and just wishes for a pain-free world, and when you can see the teenager, sitting in 2 sections over who's just wondering what they want to be in the world and what dreams they're going to follow, when you can actually reach out and see those individuals and see them as just people who are no different than you, and it doesn't matter what city you're in, it doesn't matter what country you're in, it doesn't matter how many people are in the audience, that's where you really start to connect, and that's where influence really starts to happen.
I love that you have it. Influence starts at that compassion. At that level of human connection. It's not in splashing your name across giant billboards or, the kind of used car salesman personality. It's in the human connection.
It really is. When
even in a room that big.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Even when you're sending an email out online, when you're writing a blog, if you can't envision the single person on the other end of that email or the single person on the other side of that blog, you'll never really connect with people. So whenever I write anything, I always close my eyes and I see the face of someone reading it, and I write specifically to them because people really want you to reach out and touch them individually.
It's very true. We all want to feel that we're not alone, and that we're connecting with other people out there. Now, I want to hear on the flip side of things. You talked about risks and setbacks and getting started and all of that. What about one of your favorite breakthrough moments, a moment of brilliance, whether that's in your speaking or in writing your book?
Oh, I think probably one of my biggest breakthroughs was when I really got the power of passion, and there's a lot of speakers out there that talk about passion. A lot of people sit down and they brainstorm what their branding should be and get it all figured out.
Oh, yeah.
My branding came to me because a bunch of my colleagues pointed out to me what it should be, that I should be talking about wildfire because I lit up when I used the analogy of wildfire for talking about what creates word-of-mouth epidemics, And, the interesting thing is, I always use this analogy, spark, fuel, wind, right? And the spark is how big of a problem do you solve for the world? And the fuel is how passionate are you about it, right?
Right.
And I developed this analogy of wildfire because I grew up in northern Canada, and my summer job as a student was actually running groceries to the fire crews, And so I got to see a lot of wildfires up close. So I have an intimate connection with wildfires because, they're not only forces, scary things that can really be devastating, but they're actually amazing miracles and forces of change. And when you can see wildfires for what they are, they're the rebirth of a forest. It's like, wow, you actually look at them a little differently, And so I would be up on stage and I would be using this wildfire analogy. And I remember one day coming off stage, I was at a big multi-speaker event. 6 of my colleagues were standing there going, you've got to change the name of your company. I'm like, why? Because you're never more passionate than when you use the analogy wildfire, because we can tell that's intimate and personal to you, and it means something to you, and you completely light up on stage when you're talking to people about the difference they can make inside of the world, and you use the wildfire analogy. So I rebranded my company. I actually went and did all the legal actions necessary and changed the name of my company and changed all my branding to wildfire in order to match where my passion was most lit up.
And how's that worked out for you, being vulnerable to that coaching from your colleagues?
It's been rather amazing, actually. It's been, a lot of the best business decisions I've ever made have come through interventions with colleagues. That's how the Evolutionary Business Council was created as well, actually. I had a group of colleagues say to me one day, enough already, Teresa, look at this, what you've built, give it a name already.
Yeah, because you had actually built a tribe of speakers and authors and trainers and influencers who were all committed to making a difference in the world and who know that collaboration and granting each other influence way to making a bigger difference.
Yeah, it was amazing, actually. I was just basically teaching this huge community or working with this huge community to get them helping each other. And that morphed into what became the Evolutionary Business Council.
Well, in the realm of full disclosure, I am a member of the
one of our founding members and beloved, actually.
It's something I absolutely adore, and part of my tribe that has been extraordinarily influential on me to actually start this show and to step into what was obviously there for me that I couldn't see, like that water to the fish. So just like you, Teresa, that's why we have great colleagues.
You need people to love you, to point things out to you.
Exactly.
It's funny how much our own strengths are just blind to us,
Yes. One of my favorite quotes from the artist Hugh MacLeod was, "You can't see the label of the jar you're in."
I love that quote.
Isn't that great?
Oh, that's brilliant. That's one to put out on Twitter.
Absolutely. All right. So it's my favorite question to ask. If you were just starting out today and you had your knowledge but not the resources you've developed over the years, what would be some of the first things you would do to start something today?
Oh, I love that question. Lean in. Just lean in. The reality is it's not so much important as to what you do as that you start, right? And because by leaning in, you're going to see what it should be, right? So fail fast. Really, that's the most important thing you can do. And, if you want some practical, actual takeaways, is that what you're looking for?
That would be great. Yeah, okay, you can add those on. That'd be great.
Let's start some practical, actual takeaways. You want to move into the realm of being more influential and starting a tribe. First and foremost, figure out what problem you solve for the world and make it specific. Because if you just say, I help people, well, people are like, well, how do you help people? Well, I teach people to live better lives. Well, how do you teach people to live better lives? The vaguer you are, the fewer people that will come to you for help. If you say, I solve the problem of dealing with pain from fibromyalgia, all of a sudden fibromyalgia sufferers will all come to you, right? So make sure you're really clear on what problem you solve and who you solve it for. And then just lean in, start building influence around that by starting to connect with all the other influential people that are standing for the solution of that same problem. And the more you build relationship with and connect with those other influential people, the easier it will be for you to do. So here's the second big takeaway. I've actually got a 30-day challenge. Do you want my 30-day challenge?
Let's do it. I love it.
The 30-day challenge is around this. You got to give influence to get influence, just like you got to give respect to get respect, right? So the 30-day challenge, this is actually supported with exercises off my website. If you go to wildfireacademy.com, you'll see there's a 4-week program there that's got a bunch of exercises. But the 30-day challenge is basically for the next 30 days, give influence once a day. So I'll give you a couple quick ways you can do that. You can go on LinkedIn and you can recommend and endorse people. That would be the first way you can do that. A second way you can give influence is you can shout people out on Facebook and say how much you love their work. And a third way that you can give influence is when you meet two influential people, speakers, trainers, radio hosts, whoever's in a one-to-many conversation, start introducing them to each other. Influential people love meeting other influential people. So you can connect them by email or connect them in some other way. and really help them connect with other influencers, because the more influencers meet other influencers, the more influential they become. They will love you for doing that. So do one of those things every day for 30 days and watch what happens to your own influence.
That is such brilliant advice. I've seen miracles come out of this exercise, this 30-day challenge. So Superstarters, take this one to heart this week, and not just for the week, but for the entire month. Shout people out, recommend them, introduce them to each other, and have a lot of joy doing it, because you never know the ripple effect that you're going to have on the world from that introduction or that influence that you're now exerting on your community. And you can find all of the links to Teresa's work on her show page on the Start Something Show website. So get over there and we'll make sure that you have all that information to connect with her. And we're also going to be interviewing Teresa on our Backstage Pass, where we're going to be getting deeper into how to become an influential person and some of the biggest mistakes people make when they're trying to become influential, which, believe me, we've made them. You don't have to, and you want to know these. So join us on the Backstage Pass of the Start Something Show. And Teresa, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tina. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great week, Superstarters.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of Superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.